I'm going to look forward to doing that for every video in this course. This is the first video. It is USHER. It's video 1.1 and it's an introduction to the course. So welcome to American History. We call it USHER. That's an acronym for United States History, Evidence, and Records. Normally at BTA it is a 2-semester course, which this year, because of COVID, we have adapted into an intensive deep dive 2-mini-mester course. You will study it during Mini-Mester 1 and Mini-Mester 3, and you will be finished with it. In this first video, I want to talk about 3 things. I want to talk about the syllabus, I want to talk about the schedule, and I want to talk about my answer to the question, why study history? First, the syllabus. Since you found your way to the video on our Blackbaud webpage, you can also find nearby links to our syllabus and to our schedule. The syllabus, as you might expect, is a general introduction to the course. What to expect overall, the scope, the aim of the course, what I expect of you, what you can expect of the course, how you will be evaluated, etc. Please read it. It's a 2.5-page document before you come to class on the first day. Then also right beside it, you'll see the schedule. The schedule, rather than a general view, is a day-by-day description of what to expect. When papers are due, what we will be discussing in class, what I'm expecting you to read at home. It's divided between synchronous and asynchronous learning. Those are fancy new words in this COVID world for homework and classroom work. At home, you will be doing more reading, more video watching, more documentary watching, and something I call response diary. And in class, you'll be doing almost only discussions of what you read the night before. If you are in cohort A, you will come on day 1 with all of that having been read. If you're in cohort B, you have an extra day to read it, but I will be doing essentially the same thing on day 1 and day 2 in class. You will be doing the same thing at home as each cohort, but the cohort A will have to be doing it a day earlier. I think that makes sense. The schedule will also show you that you have something called a response diary. That is a kind of daily diary that you will be contributing to in answer to questions that I give you during these videos. Little prompts, and you'll take your notes quickly, and once a week I will be looking over your shoulder and grading it as a quiz. Not something really, really important. It'll keep you accountable for doing the readings, and it will give me an idea of, are you understanding what you're reading? Are you understanding what we're talking about in class? What I'm talking about in these videos. So the first thing you're going to do tonight before coming to class tomorrow is you're going to make a Google Doc titled Your Name Response Diary. Mike Milway Response Diary. You're going to share it with me, and then you're going to make sure that you click edit so that during the week, not only can I look over your shoulder and read it, but I can make comments on it. That should be done before you come to class. When we're in class, discussion, 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 with one exception, and you know this exception if you had me in 10th grade. We will be looking at the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal every day. I want you, as a lifetime habit, reading on both sides of every issue, the right and the left. I don't want you reading instead of that way to just read whatever your news feed gives you. It's giving you what it thinks you want. But you can go to the New York Times and read on both sides of the issue as a lifetime habit, right and left. It doesn't have to be those 2 papers, but the Wall Street Journal is a Republican newspaper, right-leaning, and the New York Times is a Democratic paper, left-leaning, at least generally speaking, and you'll see that right away. Thirdly and lastly, my answer to the question, why study history? Well, first, I study history for the same reason that I love to travel. Spent all summer in Canada. Last year, my wife and I were in Italy. Before that, the year before that, for our anniversary, we went to the Holy Lands, Israel, spent 3 weeks. I love to travel. Why? Because I love to meet new people who have different value systems, ask questions that are sometimes like mine, sometimes different, but impose those different value systems, come up with different answers. They eat different food, they like different sports, and I just find that fascinating. In the same way, you can discover new people by going back in time, not just somewhere horizontally, geographically. So I love meeting new people, discovering their values, seeing how they might answer questions. I also study history because I want to understand the present. Now, if I were to ask you, I want you to explain yourself in a minute to everybody in the class. Most of you could raise your hand and say, yeah, I can do that, you know. I have an idea of what I would say to explain who I am. But if I made 2 rules that made that more difficult, you go, whoa. What if the first rule was, you're not allowed to talk about anything that has ever happened to you in the past? And secondly, you cannot talk about any relationship you have right now with your parents, with your grandparents, with your friends, with your schoolmates. You go, whoa, I can't say anything about myself, except maybe that I'm here at this moment, I'm male, and I'm old. That's true about why we study history too. Too many Americans think they understand the country, but don't understand its past, don't understand its relationships. And the better we understand all those, the easier it will be for us to explain the present. And we'll be able to explain the present in more cogent terms. The last reason I study history, and I could name 7 or 8, but let's limit it to this, refers to the old cliche that those who don't study history are condemned to repeat the mistakes of the past, which is undeniably true and flamboyantly false at the same time. It's undeniably true because I've seen it happen. Babies touch a hot stove, or toddlers touch a hot stove, or children touch a hot stove, and they learn, wow, bam, I'm not going to do that again. They've learned from the mistakes of the past. At the same time, I know that it's not true that we learn from the mistakes of the past. Otherwise, historians would be the most moral, smartest people in the world, and we're not. You go to university, and the history faculty won't be doing it any better, won't be doing it any better than the chemists or the biologists. And yet we know the past better than anybody else. We should be making fewer mistakes, but it's not true that we do. As a matter of fact, the best historians that I've ever studied, after doing a PhD in European history, were German historians from the 1880s to the 1930s. Wrote books whose theses lasted 100 years. And yet, some of those very people became Nazis and did unthinkable things. They knew history better than anybody at the time, and they were complicit in making some of the world's worst mistakes. So I want you to think about that. But it was fun being with you this first video. Take a look at the second video for tomorrow's class, if you're watching it just a day in advance. We'll see you. Bye.